My opinion on credit. Well, I think it's a double-edged sword. Think of nuclear power. It can be a very clean and efficient use of energy, but if it's mishandled, it can be very dangerous. So credit, to me, should be used when you have the possibility of getting a return on the monies that you borrow that is greater than the cost of your borrowing. So if you get into a business venture and you borrow, hopefully you will make profits that are much greater than the interest that you paid on the credit. On the other hand, if you use credit for impulse buys like clothes and things that have no value, after a couple of years or maybe 5 years, then you just ended up paying a lot more for that purchase than you otherwise would have. The return doesn't always have to be in money. It could be very appropriate to borrow for college education. That's an investment in your future. But it would be wrong to borrow a lot of money and to only have a job that makes 20 grand a year. You're not going to pay back those student loans very easily. On the other hand, if you borrow and you become a doctor or what have you, the return is much greater.
I believe the credit it judges you how you evaluate what you spend, what you buy, what you do, and give you responsibility of how to prepare for the future.
As a college student, my opinion about credit is I really don't use it or consider it. I have a debit card at school, and since my income's low, I typically just spend what I have. As far as using a credit card, I wouldn't want to keep using it and having to worry about paying it off. And so the debit card is much more useful for me. Yes, I do plan on using credit in the future. As I start working full-time, I'd like to buy a house and potentially a car, and I need to establish good credit in order to do that. I don't think most college students earn credit at school because they're dependent on their parents, they're not working, and it's harder to earn good credit while you're at school.
How has credit impacted my life? Well, good and bad. When I used credit to get into an investment, it was helpful. I made money that I otherwise would not have been able to make. To buy a house, critical to have a place to live in. Credit helped there. In other cases, using credit to purchase cars and other things kind of makes you a slave to that credit. There's always a day of reckoning, and that day means that you can't maybe go on trips that you otherwise would like to have gone on and other things of that nature. So it's had both a positive and a negative influence.
I guess one thing I learned from a while back is you don't bite more than you can chew. So you go ahead and kind of see how much you have and how much you can spend without getting really way over your head. I think you need to make good decisions according to how much you make and how much you spend.
Do I plan to change anything in the future when it comes to credit? No. Right now I have no debts. I'm also within 7 years of retirement. I think it's absolutely critical that when you go into retirement that you do not have debt hanging over your head that you have to pay. And we do not know the future of Social Security and other programs, so you have to live a lot longer these days And your nest egg generally has to be bigger than it used to be. So, no more credit for me.
I believe the credit, what got us in trouble in the first place was the banks and all the credit cards that were so easily to obtain. So I think you have to kind of hold back and use it when you really, really only have to in certain situations. Because you have to pay a lot of interest when you do use it. So you have to be careful when it comes to that.
How has the economy affected use of credit? For me personally, not a lot, but in general I can say that we've been experiencing record low interest rates for a prolonged period of time, which has made credit quite cheap. To the extent that I can deploy the use of credit into the purchase of assets that will return me more money, I will be still open to doing that. But I think we're going to enter into a period of rising rates and need to be very cautious about that. And again, in general, the fact that the economy is good, that you can borrow cheaply and pay back hopefully in cheaper dollars down the road, really won't affect me as much because, as I mentioned in a prior question, as I approach retirement, credit is not on my radar.
I think a lot of people got in trouble for overusing the credit. They did not go by how much they made, but how much they thought they're going to make. So they were borrowing a lot more than they needed to, or they could afford to pay back if anything happened. They were figuring their income on all the overtime and all the financial stock market they were gaining. So when the thing fell down, everybody didn't have enough money to pay their credit. So you have to adjust the way you live according to how much you make, not what you think you're going to be making.